You're listening to the Academy Podcast, presenting an innovative curriculum for personal growth. Sit in on exclusive conversations with influential people as they share the secrets that made them the front runners in their industries. Now, here are your hosts, Austin and Kagita.
Welcome to the AP. What's going on, Austin?
What's up, man? How you feeling, bro? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Got a graduation coming up tomorrow.
Okay. Is it a virtual graduation because it was going on? What is
actually, we're going. They're going to be sitting far away from each other. We're going to be outside on the football field.
Okay.
Only two of us can come. My son's coming from out of town, but they're not even going to be able to come to the graduation.
Wow.
Only 2 tickets. You can't even buy tickets.
So it's just you and your wife?
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, so we geeked about that.
That's what's up, man.
But right, you excited because this is your last son, my last son graduating.
Right. Empty nest, man.
Empty nest, right?
Yes, sir.
No, because we don't even know if school's gonna start.
Oh.
He might start school here
Online. That's right.
So yeah, it's anticlimactic. It's like my last son graduated.
Nah,
and yeah, he's still
there. Were you gonna convert his room into like a gym or something, or you had plans for his bedroom, man? Is that what you were thinking?
Listen. I don't got the last say around here, Doc.
I hear you. No, I hear you, Doc.
We moved into a house, dude. We got way too many bedrooms.
Yeah.
All these rascals got rooms.
Mm.
My oldest son got a room. This dude finished college.
Yeah,
he's seen his room one time.
That's
I don't even know why we got this house.
Yeah, I hear you. But you thought you was gonna have an empty nest, man. But what's going on? It's looking like he may be home a little bit longer.
Yeah, Doc. But I mean, and I'm tripping because like it's affecting me, but it's more so affecting him. Like his last year of high school, was just lambasted with this stuff, man. And then, that's so important, man. I just remember my last month of high school and the graduation and everything surrounding that. And then you move on and your first year or your first few months in college, it's just, you can't replace that. I don't know if it's going to be the same, when they stutter step, if they go in online and then end up going in later. I'm not sure if that's going to have the same feel. Hopefully they can kind of recreate some of those things when they go in later, but we'll see.
Yeah, man, we'll see. It's interesting with school changing everything, even with, my wife, she's a teacher, educator, 4th grade, and she teaches online. She's teaching the kids online. She posts work, and that's it, man. It seems like a new wave, man. But I think, just like us as pastors, educators have had to kind of switch up their role a little bit, man.
So has your wife loved her job the same, even though it's different?
She likes being in her pajamas sometimes. I'll tell you that, instead of having to fully get dressed and get ready for the day. But I think she works harder because she has to really teach each individual child, which I think it can be difficult at times, going back and forth. I think there was a season where she wasn't able to go live with everybody, so she had to kind of individually help things out. A lot more sitting, a lot more meetings and stuff like that. But I think that she did enjoy the parts where she got to connect with the child one-on-one more in terms of just spending time with that child over the internet with their parents too. So it was cool. I think that you can't replace what happens in the classroom, the magic that happens, that takes place. I think you definitely miss that. I think you miss the interaction for sure. Being on Zoom and stuff like that's been difficult. But I think overall she's enjoying it about the same.
You said the magic that happens in class.
The magic, man. Magic.
Do you remember grade school?
Yeah, dude. My mom taught me in grade school. My mom was my principal.
Oh,
my mom was, dude, man, it was like the worst thing ever. My mom was my principal. My dad was the pastor of the church. It was like, it was bad, man. When I get in trouble, it was worse at home. It was all bad, man. So, and then I married a fantastic teacher. So I helped put together classrooms every single year, man. So it's a joy. It is a joy. But I do remember grade school, and I do remember those things for sure. So I have a deep appreciation for our educators, man. They make the world go round, bro. They do.
Okay.
That's it, man. So I know today we got somebody special with us, man. Tell us who we got today.
Well, listen, we got my very own cousin, Dr. Courtney Gober.
Yes, sir.
Down there in San Antonio, Texas. He's down there, a school administrator, and someone who's going to be able to answer some of our questions. We're just going to pick his brain and find out and not what's going on in San Antonio, but see if we can find out about what's going on around the country based on what's going on down there. You have a very interesting position, Doc, and me knowing your whole story, I don't know who starts off as a principal. I mean, you started off as a teacher, moved to vice principal, principal. You've had a track all the way up through, so you can probably speak to a lot of things that we'll bring to the table today, man. So I appreciate you taking this time to come on.
Man, thanks for being here, man. Thank you.
Thank you guys for inviting me, and hope I can meet those expectations.
No, for sure, man. For sure.
All right, so just first, right off the bat, man, why did you want to go into education? I mean,
well, let me start. I guess I'll give you a quick walk through my journey here. I started really as a son of an educator like you, Austin, and my mother was a elementary teacher, and I did the same thing you're doing with your wife, setting up bulletin boards. And all the things that go into an elementary classroom. I was right there with my mother doing that. Went off to college at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. I got to throw Morehouse in.
Morehouse.
And so there I did a lot of, it's not student teaching. I just helped out in the schools for some, community service hours. And I was working with John F. Kennedy Middle School there in Atlanta, Georgia, right in the heart of downtown. And so I realized when I was working there that this is what I wanted to do. I felt like I was good at it. I felt I had a passion for it. And so I went.
So, Doc,
sir,
your freshman year, you were a education major?
No, I was a history major, sociology minor, and I stuck with it.
Okay.
And so when I graduated from Morehouse, I went to the University of Michigan, and I did my student teaching there in Detroit at Renaissance High School. And I had a great time at Renaissance High School teaching. As a student teacher in Detroit, you're really just an unpaid teacher. Let me just say it that way.
Mercy.
And I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but I got some true skins on the wall working there in Detroit. Had a good time. Some of my favorite students came out of Renaissance High School. Then I went on to Plano, Texas, to work at a suburban school, very affluent suburban school. And that's where I went up through the ranks as a teacher, assistant principal, and principal.
Wow.
And so after being a principal at 3 different high schools, I came to San Antonio, Texas to be the assistant superintendent here in San Antonio. So that's my quick journey. So the stepping stones, if you will, to becoming principal and all that, you really need to start off as a teacher. If for nothing else, to be respected by your teachers, you need to have those skins on the wall.
Oh,
absolutely.
No, okay. So I thought you were going to come from the angle of so that you can understand what they're going through, but also so that you can garner the respect. Because if you haven't done it,
if you haven't done it, it's going to be hard to.
I agree.
Principal, I think as a parent, and we've all been to school, so we looked at our principal sort of as the disciplinarian, the manager, if you will, of the building. But the principal is really the principal instructor on that campus.
Right.
And the principal teacher, the principal instructor, the lead instructional leader. And so if that person doesn't understand what good instruction looks like, and what learning looks like, and how learning takes place,
right,
that's an ineffective principal.
And you think that because, and I'm sure we do have some principals who have very little experience in the classroom. So you're saying that really just hinders them in terms of the respect level from the other educators in the building?
If that principal has very limited experiences in the classroom, and or if you're trying to be a principal at an urban school,
right,
only have suburban teaching experience, you're going to have a tough road to climb. Not saying it's impossible.
Sure.
But you're going to have a tough road to climb. And so, you want to have some mirrored experiences for the stakeholders whom you serve.
Right.
So if I'm serving, inner city kids, especially leading schools in inner cities, I need to make sure I have something in my background that says I'm the appropriate person for the job.
Absolutely.
So, did you get any awards along the way, like as a teacher?
Okay, now, okay, you gonna make me brag. So okay,
I gotta ask leading questions.
As a teacher, I was teacher of the year for my district. The first African American teacher of the year for that district.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And a few years ago, I want to say 2018, I was a finalist for principal of the year for the whole state of Texas.
Wow.
So I've received some other awards along the way, diversity awards and leadership awards, but those two are the ones, if you don't mind me, let me toot my horn on those.
Yeah, right, for sure. Yo, Doc, I just got to ask you, as a son of an educator, as a husband of one, you talk about how you kind of have you've been in the game a long time and you've been at every level, but yet you kind of mentioned it earlier. Teachers teach some of the most brilliant minds that are to come. The presidents that come through, those who the presidents of CEOs, top doctors, they all start in the classroom. But it just seems like sometimes in some districts they get coins, little to nothing. But I just kind of sense a calling on teachers' lives. That it's not so much about the funds, even though I know for a fact, they wish it could be more. Speak about that calling and what that means for teachers who sometimes, it's tough financially, but still they are one of the brightest minds that we have in this world.
You're hitting on something very powerful. Let me thank you for that question. Everybody remembers a favorite teacher they've had, or a good teacher that they would, call a great influence on their life.
Mm-hmm.
That's still the case now, because on the other end of that spectrum, there's the teacher that you felt didn't have your best interest in mind, or was not effective, or just did you wrong, or maybe your friends wrong. And behind all of that, there is that passion, that calling, as you say.
Right.
And there is going to lie the problem. A teacher that feels that they were called to teach, to have a passion for teaching, I can tell you now, although they care about their paycheck, they want to make sure they can provide for their family. Right. But that is not their motivation.
Right.
Their motivation is seeing light bulbs go off. Their motivation is seeing a kid who was told he can't all his life, all of a sudden believing he can. And so that teacher is going to stand out as a good and great teacher because of that calling. Whereas the teacher that doesn't have that calling and maybe is looking for a paycheck is going to, whatever is in you is going to come out of you. And so if it's not in you to change the lives of kids, that's going to come out of you. And I just strongly believe that kids are almost like, animals, like they can sniff out a home. They can sniff
it's true.
mean them well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, especially being a husband of a teacher, I just can see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And being a teacher, being a principal, having to build morale when it's tough, because, I see it every day. I see the pain of teaching all day, the struggle and the joy, and then having to have a parent who's upset over something small, based on what a child might have said. You being a leader, becoming the being the finalist at top principal in your state. What was the dedication and what was that like for you? Being able to lead other minds through education.
I think as I sort of said earlier, when you have a passion for something, you're not doing it for the accolades or for the paycheck or for anything other than doing what's right for kids.
Right.
And so, leading teachers, leading campuses and now leading a district, you're taking that same passion that you had as in the classroom, and you are translating that to what it can be for a campus or even a district.
Right.
So at the end of the day, going from a teacher to a principal, I always say, and I will maintain, that the most important job that principal has,
right,
hiring the right teachers.
Yeah.
That, despite anything else, if you don't spend the time and energy to hire the right teachers, then you are going to slowly cause damage to those schools, ultimately to students. And so, now at a district level, one of the most important jobs I have is hiring the right principals.
Right.
That believe in hiring the right teachers and so on and so forth. And now we're in this day and age of COVID. And
right.
So, it's an interesting time because I think something has been found out that has always been the truth.
Okay.
That is, parents have always been the child's first teacher.
It's true.
Right.
And so now the schoolhouse has entered the home.
Right.
And so parents who, and I'm only going to make this comment because you talked about, how teachers have to deal with angry and disgruntled parents.
Right. Sure.
There's a new appreciation, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
There's a whole lot of new love for the schoolhouse right now.
Right.
But more importantly, though, and more seriously, the parent has always been the first teacher. Always been the first teacher.
Right.
And some parents, sort of threw that right away at the schoolhouse door. That they're no longer the first teacher, that the school needs to be teaching, X, Y, and Z. And so COVID, horrible situation we're in, but there's some good that's coming out of this. And that is parents are sort of re-engaged into the importance they have in their child's education.
Right.
So that's profound right now. And so some of the complaints, some of the concerns that parents have had with the school and with the teachers, we're not seeing so much of that going on right now.
Right.
I think we're seeing more appreciation and more understanding of what goes into the job of a teacher.
Man, let me go back a little bit, because you talked about the importance of hiring the right teachers, and then of course now hiring the right principals. Like, what's your process? Because I mean, if everything is riding on who you're hiring, like, so how did you make sure that you were doing it right? Like, and why don't the other, like, people who are not doing it right, why aren't they doing it right? Like, isn't there a book? Isn't there a seminar or something?
Good question. And there's not a right way where you can document it and tell everybody to duplicate it, because it's not as simple as that. And it depends on what type of students you're serving. And so let me just say, I've been in very affluent schools where content knowledge was very important to the community, to the parents. And so there you want to hire teachers that have degrees from, prestigious schools and such. But even in that, and here's what I use as a filter for great teachers. It's relationships.
Yes, sir.
How well is that person in not only developing, but maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships? And that right there can weed out a lot of folks. So once I weed through your ability to create relationships, then we can get more into content and to pedagogy and to all the things that make a complete teacher. But relationships, you don't need to go to school for relationships. You don't need to have a degree for relationships.
Right.
You are either a person that values the power of a relationship or not.
Right.
And it's really sort of easy to tease that through.
Okay, you said that's easy. So, okay, I understand how you can do it for somebody who's already been teaching years, and you can kind of go back through their history and call some folks and talk to them. But what about the new ones coming in? It's just in the interview process, you can tell whether they're relationship people. I mean, you suss that out?
Yeah, absolutely. We give them scenarios, tell them what to do in certain scenarios, explain a difficult, explain maybe a friend or a relative that you've had a falling out with, and you know, how did you repair or maintain or fix that relationship? How they answer those kind of questions are huge. Then one question I always like to ask is, name a teacher that you've had a great relationship, or no, I'm sorry. Name a teacher that was profound in your life, and explain to me what made her or him so impactful. And so it's you'll be surprised at the answers you get. But the person that talks about, you know, that teacher spent time with me after school, or that teacher would attend my basketball games, or that teacher, those relational type of
you need that
is what weeds that out.
Yeah. And it's almost like if you got it, you got it. And those it's when you sit across them, you can tell. And I think that's definitely life changing, because I do think, you know, I used to think to myself that some of the hardest teachers that I've had, and those who I just felt were mean and just old, didn't know what they're talking about, I cannot lie. Those are the ones that gave me the hardest time. And really, it was me giving them a hard time. But I realized that they were still the ones who spent time with me after school. Despite my attitude the entire day, those are the ones that made the impact. So when you grow up and you see them now, you don't have those same feelings as a kid, because you know what they did was. So Doc, I fully receive that for sure. Now I got to ask you, on the flip side, let's say that we've got some schools, and let's just say it, they don't have the best principal. As superintendent, what becomes your role then? You know, what goes through your mind when you know that this may not be in our best interest?
You got to get rid of them. You got to get rid of them. Last year, I let me say it this way: I had to get rid of two principals that I felt very strongly did not belong there, because their lack of vision, their lack of their lack of ability to build teachers. These two individuals specifically, I did not see their ability to be instructional leaders. They could manage things. There was no problem with budgeting, or no problem with legalese. But in terms of helping a teacher get from here to here, there was a problem, and so we had to get them out the door.
Wow.
So when you say here to here, so yeah, help me with that. When you say growing, basically building up teachers, what do you mean by that specifically?
Well, I think the biggest fight or struggle that a lot of our inner city urban schools face, and by the way, this is even true in suburban schools, is that of apathy. Student apathy, students that just don't care. Like to me, it's easy to deal with the kid that's motivated. Like that kid's sort of on autopilot. It's even easy to deal with the kid who is causing some problems, but it's very hard to deal with the kid that doesn't even show up on your radar, because they have totally tuned out. They're not being a problem for anybody. They just quietly put their head down, and you don't even know they're in the room. Wow. That level of apathy with them and some of the problem kids is the hardest thing to fight. And so you can't write a kid off, though. You can't say, well, hey, they don't care, so why do I care? If you have that feeling, you were that kid's last hope.
Right. And now you're gone.
Last hope. And so you're telling me that we're going to blame a 12-year-old or even a 15-year-old who doesn't know better. We're going to say, because you don't care, because you're not engaged, because you're not doing your work or participating in class, that the hell with you, I'm done. That attitude we're going to have to a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old. And so teachers and principals that are understanding of that and have tools and tricks to engage the kids and fight that apathy. But those are the ones that stand out. Those are the ones you want in your child's school. Right.
So do you have any stories or about like situations where you had to wake some kids up, you had to wake up a situation and provide opportunity for kids maybe that weren't into it and didn't think it was all of that serious?
Hey, look, we could go all night on stories. Let me give you two, though. One is an example of it's in a suburban school. I was the assistant principal there, and the school was a split school, half affluent kids and half low socioeconomic kids, and almost equally along racial lines between the minority kids, Hispanic and African American, and white. I was told when I got there that, they were having a lot of problems with discipline. They never really specifically said, who were the disciplined students, but I picked up on what they were not telling me.
Right.
Then that first week of school, when kids arrived, I realized what was going on. Mm-hmm. And you won't know this unless you're from a culture that experiences this regularly. Mm-hmm. I am in the hallway, and I hear in my walkie-talkie that there's an altercation in the hallway by the art classroom.
Right.
The person in the mic or the radio was sounding very urgent, and I needed to get there fast. So I'm racing down here to get to see what's going on. I'm thinking there's going to be a fight or a brawl, and there's not. There's a group of Black and Hispanic girls having a very passionate conversation about fashion and about, one of them had on some from fake hair, weave.
Yeah.
Ponytail is what I recall.
Right.
And so they were just what we would call jonesing each other.
Right.
And just being, passionate about what they were talking about.
Right.
I guess you could say they were being loud because they were, but they weren't being inappropriate. They weren't being confrontational. They weren't. There was no fight about to happen.
Right.
But from somebody that has never experienced, a passionate conversation amongst Black girls or Hispanic girls, I can see how you would think that's a fight.
Right.
A fight about to happen or something.
Right.
And so, here was an example that we had to teach the teachers, the middle class teachers that didn't understand that our schools, even our inner city schools, that the school structure is really a middle class structure.
Wow.
And so when you have kids that come from poverty, and putting these kids in a middle class structure and then holding over them middle class expectations.
Wow.
That they're playing an unfair game.
Right.
So when I go home, if I'm a kid of poverty, it is perfectly normal to watch and listen to my mom and aunties, have this passionate conversation that may be loud everywhere else. But in my house, that's a good
conversation. Yeah.
Bonding,
Yeah, for sure.
And so we had to have these kind of conversations with our teachers and give them many, many, many different scenarios,
right,
to understand what it is to be a kid from poverty.
Right.
And so now let's talk about the kids that are apathetic, maybe even causing problems, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to tell a story, and I'll try to be quick here.
Take your time.
There was a family, the Jones family.
Yeah.
And the Jones family, there was 3 boys, and there was 2 cousins, and they were all in the same apartment living with the mom or the auntie for 2 of them. And so the Jones boys wore me out, and I have a high tolerance. I can endure a lot, but the Jones boys, if one of them got into a fight or got into an altercation with the teacher, it was almost like an internal radar that the other 4 would show up.
Right.
And this was before the time of cell phone. I mean, there were cell phones existing, but not for the common person.
Right.
These 5 kids, they were so in tune with each other that if one of them got in something, you're going to see 4 more show up.
Right.
Well, anyways, one day, it was the morning, we were having breakfast in the cafeteria. One of the kids, Jones kids, got into a fight. It really started off playing around, and it escalated real quick to a fight.
Right.
Sure enough, the other 4 come. It went from a fight to a brawl. And this was a day that I said, oh no, I can't put all 5 of y'all in school suspension for a full day like that. Oh no, like
right.
that was going to be a problem.
Right.
So I called the home. This is a normal call for me. The mom knew me well. I knew her well.
Right.
She felt she was having her kids mistreated. And I just told her, look, today's not going to be a good day. So why don't we have them go home and they can come back tomorrow.
Right.
And she explained to me she don't have a car to go up there and get them. And I said, not a problem. I'm going to put them in the school van and I'm going to drive them home.
Wow.
So I drive them home to the apartment.
Now, were you principal at this time? You principal at this time?
No, at this time I was assistant principal.
Okay, so you did it yourself.
I did it myself. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You just pull up the van and come on, y'all.
Yeah.
And so I drive them to the apartment, and I knock on the door. I see Miss Jones. I know Miss Jones very well, and I deliver the kids. And as I'm looking in the apartment, I see more kids, school-age kids. And I'm confused because these kids are school age, not in school, but they're all sitting on the couch reading books. Seems like they were engaged in some kind of worksheet or something one of them was doing. And I said, Miss Jones, whose kids are these? And she said, oh, these are my kids. I said, oh, I didn't know you had more kids. How come they're not after school? And she said, no, these are my good kids. I only send my bad kids to school.
Oh my goodness.
Well, obviously the last part of this story is false, but I'm trying to make a point that our parents don't keep the good kids at home.
Yeah.
And only send their bad kids.
Right.
Our parents are sending the best they have.
Yeah.
These kids are the best I have. And so when you call me and suspend my child and put my child in detention and all these things, which by the way, are precursors for what happens when they are adults with probation and detention centers and all of this. These kids were groomed to be in the system, and it started in the schoolhouse. Anyways, that mother is sending you the best she has. Wow. And no mother, no father has a baby and holds that baby in their hands, holds them to the sky, if you will, like they did in Roots, and says, "Oh, child of mine, I can't wait for you to grow up. And so the school will call me and give you detentions and suspend you and expel you." No child holds their kid up to the sky with those wishes and dreams.
Right.
Something happened along the way. And if you're an educator, a person who has studied the child development method, you should know better. You should know better. So let me pause right there. Go ahead.
No. It's just fascinating. I mean, you never look at that side of it. And I think a lot of times you made a good point too about we've got so many young kids that grow up in poverty. And that's a real huge spot for me and G who pastor in African American communities, especially. But I think that when we've got kids that come out of poverty, it's almost like they already down by 10 in the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? We already feel like the stat is stacked up against them. And as you're just saying, as the teacher, they got to know.
You got to know.
Yeah.
And isn't school in America supposed to be the common denominator? Isn't it supposed to be the place where no matter whether you come from an influential house, a house that has some money, or whether you're coming out of poverty, you're supposed to be getting the same education, and so have the same things you can look forward to if you do well in school. So can you speak to some of that? Is there a difference between people who are come from so-called affluent homes and those who come from poverty, and is it a level playing field in the school system?
Powerful question there, G. Powerful question. The school should be a leveling field. It really should be a leveling field. There's so many problems though with that, and let me start with the child that's in the developmental years between birth and about 5 years old that grows up in a middle class home with parents who have finished high school, maybe even have some college or graduate from college. When that child is 5 years old, if you can imagine a bucket or a basket that contains words in it, that child's bucket is going to be filled with words and vocabulary.
Wow. Dang.
The kid that came and is living in poverty, perhaps with a parent that has not finished high school, maybe never started college, they have entered the schoolhouse in kindergarten with their bucket half full.
Right.
And so immediately from day one in the schoolhouse, it's not even.
Wow.
And so that, by the way, just so we're all clear, that is the educational gap that we're talking about.
Right.
The educational gap, most people are talking about things in high school, but really, you get to the root of the problem, it's in kindergarten.
Mercy.
The kid that walked in the door. And so that's why, and I'm only saying this because y'all are both pastors and have a following, it is crucially important that kids, babies, toddlers are read to, that they are talked to, not at. And y'all know what I'm talking about. It is very common in our culture that parents talk at their children, especially in those formative years.
Yes, sir.
And so, okay, so let's take a pause there and let me answer the other part of this. In our schools in America, I wish I knew these stats, but just trust and believe that it is highly disproportional of the number of African American males that are in special education. Trust and believe me when I tell you it is highly disproportional. The number of African American and Hispanic males who are suspended or expelled.
Right.
And so leveling ground, yes, it should be. But as I said before, our schools are middle class systems. Even the inner city schools are middle class systems. And in those middle class systems, you're putting kids and expecting middle class behavior and middle class expectations. And they were never prepared for it. And so until we fix our systems, and don't mistake when I say fix, say lower expectations. I'm not saying lower expectations. We're always going to have a problem.
Yeah. Well, can I, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but can I change the wording from middle class behavior to middle class culture? Is it just a cultural difference? Like you were talking earlier about the argument in the hallway that was innocent, but didn't look innocent to people from another culture. So could it be a middle class cultural that it looks different?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I do mean to say culture. I'm talking not just that example of kids talking loud. I'm talking even with time. Hell, even our little interview right here. We were going to start at 6 o'clock, brothers, but we started at 6:20, and nobody's offended because it starts when it starts.
Right.
I like the example of the African tribe, and they had a European guy show up and said, when does the tribe meeting start? Well, it starts when we all get here. We not all here.
Right.
And so our concept of time, when I say hour, by the way, this is a common trait of time amongst all colored people, not just Black. It is. I've been to many, many Latin American countries and work with Latin American schools. This concept of time, and we even call it colored people time or CP time.
We do.
Time is a very flexible thing in many cultures, but not at the schoolhouse. Not at the schoolhouse. That bell rings, you there or you not there. And then you're punished. You're punished if you're not there because your culture and how you were brought up is against this culture that says, right here, there's a finite line. And as I said again, when you take kids that come from a culture, that come from an upbringing that doesn't have the same values in terms of relationships, because kids of color highly value relationships.
They do.
You have to allow them to talk to their friends. And if you don't allow that, they're going to find a way to talk to
their friends.
Hey, let me throw an anecdote in there. Just thinking about my middle son, and we put him in a school where he was a minority for a little while, and for 2 years. Should have been one, because I would get phone calls. Let me tell you one phone call I got. They said he was squirming in worship. I said, how long is worship? He was in kindergarten. I said, how long was worship? It's an hour.
For a 5-year-old.
Yeah. What do you expect him to do? One time he had to stay after school. I said, what happened? He had to stay after school because he finished his work. And then he turned around in his seat to look behind him. And he wasn't talking. They said he didn't talk to nobody, but it's just because he could have. It's because he turned around in his seat and was looking at the rest of the class. He was done with his work and he did not talk, but he had to stay after school 20 minutes.
Yeah.
For turning around to look over his shoulder.
Yeah. So let me share something.
And I'm still mad at this school.
He's still upset about this. You can tell. He's still an upset parent.
In this school, dude, they got the 6-inch rule.
Yeah.
And my son, he there, he happy, he all up in everybody's face. And so they treated him like a bad kid. This dude has straight A's or whatever you get in kindergarten, the best grades and everything, but he was seen as a bad kid, and that's how they treated him. It had nothing to do with his grades and stuff. It had everything to do with his culture. It had everything to do with he didn't know that you're supposed to stay far away from everybody. He didn't know they treated him like COVID virus.
And there's so many examples of that. I mean, really, if we really looked at how many examples happen on a daily, hourly basis,
right?
Very, very sad. It's very, very sad. Now, you are successful, G. You are successful, Austin, because, in my opinion, let me start with that. The kids of color that finish school and go on to do great things, the thing that separates them is their ability to understand this other culture and their culture.
Yeah.
Like, intellect, I don't know if that's the differentiating factor, because there's many kids, there's many people on the street that I would say are smarter than me. But maybe somewhere along the line, they didn't want to or couldn't accept this other culture. And so then their ability to be successful has been diminished because their skill set, we call it really code switching, their ability to switch code has been hindered, or they just choose not to do it. And there's no judgment. There's no judgment if you don't choose to do it.
Right.
So when you look at what's going on right now with the riots and the protesting, when you look at what's going on with all across America leading up to our president,
right?
What you're really looking at is the good Negro, which, by the way, is you and me,
right?
You and me, because we have learned to play both games, to be effective in both circles, versus the other person who says, "Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna be me. And if you don't like this, then the hell with you."
Right.
And bam, a baton over their head, bam, a knee on their neck, bam, all these things happening because our society only expects people of color to have another the understanding of culture.
Yeah.
But those in power, those who have the majority, they don't feel the need to understand another culture. They don't. Wow. They don't feel the urgency to understand. And so now you have police officers doing the things they do. The best thing I could think of is a professor of mine at Morehouse said, "To be white in America is to not have to think about it."
Wow. So, and that's heavy too. As a leader, assistant superintendent, not only are you over principals, I'm sure that you are at different schools each and every day. When we before COVID, you were oftentimes in a lot of meetings. Let's talk a little bit about the conversation of, in terms of African American teachers. Do we still have a strong number? Or do we see less of them? Is it an area where we have still a lot of Caucasian teachers coming down from their culture, as we've talked about, or their working class or middle class to the poverty, to the hood rather? Are we seeing any change in that, or is that getting better? What's your take on that?
I think it is getting better. I do. I think a lot of very qualified, very promising and talented teachers are entering the force who are African American, who are Hispanic. And now the only concern I would say, especially in high schools and maybe middle schools, is that I'm noticing, and I don't think I'm wrong, that a lot of them go into PE, coaching, and I'm really trying to find more that want to teach math, want to teach science,
right?
And so, but no, we've come a long way in terms of the numbers, and not only the numbers, but the talent of minority teachers. Now, I guess I'm always going to want more. So now, I want more talented minority teachers to teach advanced classes, to teach math and science and technology.
Right. And so for you being first of all, a man of color who been 20 years in the teaching business, but you did 16 in leadership, you've risen to the top and you've been blessed. What would be your wisdom to that young educator, white or black, or any race at all, that wants to take it to the next level? What was it about you that took your game to another level, to where you weren't just I just want to teach, but you took it to the next level?
I think it is a strong belief that all kids can learn. Mm-hmm. And if you're in my class and you fail, I fail. And wow. I can't let you fail. I can't let you fail, because that means I failed you, and I might be the last hope or chance you have. Because in my mind, nobody's better than me. In my mind, I'm the best teacher in this hallway.
Yeah.
So if you can't learn in my class, well, I don't know how you're gonna learn. Period. Because in my mind, I'm the best.
Right.
So it's that mindset that has always sort of driven me, that I can teach any child, right, and I can motivate any child, and every child that comes through my door. Oh, what a blessing it is for you, because you have entered the one place that you're gonna leave here with some mastery of knowledge. Because thank God you didn't end up next door. You ended up right here. And so I tell my students that, and I tell them, if you feel otherwise, if you ever are in my room and feel otherwise, that maybe you should have went into the other door, let me know.
Right.
Let me know. And so that kind of assurance, that kind of empowerment that you give kids, that is what I feel has driven me to any success I've achieved.
Yeah.
Okay. And even trying to fish for you, to pat yourself on the back again.
I'll take it.
Hey, trying to fish for that. So what I just remember you telling me a story once, and I don't remember. I want you to repeat it here, about how you kind of started finding some talented kids where people didn't expect you to find talented kids. Can you rehash that story for me and for our listeners?
Let me say this, that sometimes when you are living and working in cities and schools of poverty, it is often the case, and there's no judgment, that even the teachers, even sometimes the parents, have a standard of low expectations. And so I'm going to give you a quick example about when I came to one of the high schools as a principal. And for whatever reason, I just happened to keep walking into advanced classes, like honors or advanced AP classes. And I noticed that there were no black kids, no Hispanic kids. And if there was just one or two. And throughout that day, I kept seeing the same one or two kids in the advanced courses. And so I quickly said, I need to figure out what's going on here, because is this a systemic issue? Is our school set up where they can't get in? Or is this sort of a cultural thing to where kids are not selecting those courses. Long story short, we have different tests, ability tests. I want to say IQ, but I just want to say that for easy translation. There's many tests that schools have that show the academic ability of a kid. And so I was pulling those kind of test results, and I identified this first year I'm talking about 45 kids that I felt would be very successful in advanced courses. And I pulled those kids to my office one by one and asked them, why did they not sign up for AP English or AP Math, or so on and so forth? And their answers were astounding. It was anything from, my friends are not in that class. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's too much work, sir. To, I don't like that teacher. I heard she's mean. And so I slowly and methodically showed that student what everything else is saying about them doesn't add up to why they can't be in that classroom. I was trying to explain to them, if you have ability here, but you keep performing here,
right,
you are shortchanging yourself. And if this becomes a habit, you're going to do this your whole life. Your whole life, you're going to do the easy, the convenient, the comfortable thing, when really everything about you says you should be performing up here. So you talk to that kid, you talk to that parent. And by the way, it's just as hard to convince that parent.
Right.
Because they don't want their kid to go into a situation and experience failure. So long story short, I encouraged many kids of color to enter these advanced courses. And I think that's what you were alluding to when you said some awards I won. And that was an award I won from the College Board. And that's the same group that does the SAT test and the AP test. They saw a significant gain at my campus of kids of color entering and being successful in advanced courses. It's not unique to any school I was at. I believe there's kids in every school, in every classroom, that have a hidden talent, a hidden skill that somebody needed to tap into. And let me say this too. I believe there's kids that I haven't tapped into that for whatever reason, an opportunity, or maybe I didn't pay enough attention. I'm sure there's kids that even went through my classroom and my building as a principal that, we missed their talent. We missed an opportunity for them.
Right.
But I have a few examples. I'm going to name a recent one. About 2 years ago, there was an African American student. He spent more time in the hallways than he did in the classrooms. And so I was the principal of a school in the outskirts of Dallas, Texas. And this school had an agriculture program that was teaching kids how to weld. And there was a welding barn, literally a barn, where kids would go take a bus that shuttled them over there for the welding class. Now, the kids in that class were stereotypical, let me say that, farmer kind of kids, plaid shirt, overall kind of kids, no kids of color. And the teacher was a good country, boy teacher. But don't make a mistake. I'm not saying he had any, problems with any other kids of color or anything. I'm just saying he was a country guy. He had country kids, and they were learning the welding. Well, the kid that I'm talking about, the African-American kid, I got tired of seeing him in the hallway. I got tired of talking to him. I told him, I said, you have exhausted my vocabulary. I have no more words to share with you. And so if you don't want to learn in the classrooms, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to find a skill that at least you can leave this school with. And so I said, I'm putting you in welding class. Oh, no, I'm not going out there with all them redneck kids. I ain't doing that. No. I'm not asking you. This wasn't a question.
Right.
I'm putting you in welding class, and you're going to start tomorrow. So I called his mom and explained to her, and she was a very typical mom that just trusts the school if you have a relationship. If you have a relationship, and I had a relationship with her because she's one I probably call once a week anyways.
Right.
She trusted me. And I said, look, don't listen, just trust me on this. You know, I don't know what the end result's going to be, but it's not going to be worse than what it is.
Right.
And so we put him out there, and I'm going to use his words, the student, you know, I put him out there in his words with the redneck kids.
Right.
And I checked on him for the first week or two because it was off campus. I had to drive over there just to make sure he was all right. He distanced himself. The teacher tried to keep bringing him in. He kept distancing himself. Well, I can't tell you the whole evolution of how it happened because I wasn't there every day. But by the end of the semester, the teacher asked me to come out because they had a presentation for me. And I said, well, you know, I was shocked, first of all, that the welding kids were going to do a presentation for me, but let's go out there. So I went out there, and that student, I really want to call his name because he's just a phenomenal kid. He had built from raw steel a smoker, you know, like a barbecue smoker, for me, and with my name on the top of it and everything. And it was not just some barrel that had a hole in it. No, this was, and I wish I had a picture to show y'all right now. This was a very, very complex welding project that he did. And he built it for me. That kid right now, that kid has graduated and he works for Caterpillar, the big bulldozers and all that. He's probably, I don't know exactly what he's making, but I know when he left, he wrote me an email months after he got the job and told me he was making $30-some an hour.
Wow. When he left.
A kid in the hallway.
Right. Kid in the hallway.
And you know, now he is a welder, and I would suspect in 10 years he'll be making more money than me.
Wow. So you know, and that story just goes to shows the impact of the relationship that you can have in the hallway, in the classroom. But Doc, talk about now as we kind of shift gears a little bit. It's COVID-19 hit. All of your principals and teachers and staff members, you are at home. You put on Zoom with the kids, trying to figure it out. You know, for you as an assistant superintendent, you being a leader, what does the future hold? What are you seeing? What's encouraging? What are you concerned about?
It's a huge question. I wish I had the golden answer, but to dissect that a little bit, you know, I think the role of the teacher has indefinitely changed. I think the role of parents has indefinitely changed, and things are going to be different, and nobody knows for how long. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know if next month, you know, there's going to be a vaccine and then all this goes away. So the work we're doing, we at least in San Antonio, we just had to make a decision. Look, we can't keep talking and planning about this like it's, you know, a week, a month, a semester away from going back to normal. we need to really change our mindset to what a new normal could be. And so now we're investing in different technology that does a better job of engaging kids and teachers online. Now we're changing our curriculum, changing the way we do and even what we call an assignment to be more internet-based, more succinct. It's true that there's a lot of fluff, in classrooms and in assignments, but we have to be more succinct into what we're trying to measure when we give an assignment. So all of that to say, right now, safety is paramount in our minds. We're trying to figure out the best way to bring kids back to school. Most of the models that are being talked about and planned for involve, bringing part of the students back, let me just say half.
Right.
So now you have a classroom of maybe 12 to 15 instead of, 20 to 30.
Right.
So that way we can properly distance them and all of that.
Wow.
But it's very challenging when you talk about, a kindergarten class or a first grade class. I don't care if you had 4 kids in that big classroom, they're going to interact with each other. That's just what they do.
Right.
And so it's very challenging. So in San Antonio, in our school district, 93% of our kids are in poverty. 93%. So when you're saying that you are not going to go to school, you're saying you're not going to get your free breakfast, your free lunch,
right,
supper,
right.
Get opportunities to engage with technology. That when you tell that to kids of poverty, that any access you had to middle class life and middle class entitlements are gone.
Wow.
So we first worked hard to make sure we were still able to provide 3 meals every day to all of our students.
Yeah.
Then we worked hard to acquire technology, and we found Chromebooks, Google Chromebooks for every one of our students. Now we're working on with the city to provide free Wi-Fi for everybody and every student that is in our city. And so we're trying to create an infrastructure to where if this is our new normal and you have to learn from home, that just because you don't have doesn't mean you can't do.
Right.
And we're trying to bridge that gap. So I have to start there because most people don't think about that. They're thinking about their middle class kid that you see on TV.
Right.
And I can't go to prom.
Right.
I can't, whatever. Well, and
these kids can't eat. They can't eat.
They can't eat.
Yeah, that's heavy.
And so, we're working on that. And so the answers to the problem, I don't think anybody has the best answer. I think there's good, safe, practical answers. And I think there's answers that are very considerate of both students and families. And that's the fine line you're just trying to navigate through, is what's best for our kids and what's doable for our family.
Right. So unmute, G. We want to hear you.
Follow-up question to that is how much collaboration do you do with people in your line of work from other states? Like, do you all share ideas?
Oh yeah.
And then who do you have to sell it to? In order, when you wanted to get Chromebooks in all the hands, when you started talking about the Wi-Fi for all the people who need Wi-Fi, who do you have to sell that to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, to answer the first question, yes, we're always in collaboration with other school districts that look like us. The prominent one that we work with is a group of inner city schools called the Greater Council of Urban Schools. And that's Philadelphia, Denver, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Detroit, and the like, Dallas, Houston, all that. So we meet regularly with them. But who do you sell it to? You're always having to make the case to your taxpayers, to your community. And so, saying we're going to buy 30,000 laptops, you need to be able to justify that. And so luckily in San Antonio, even though we're in the very red state of Texas, the citizens of San Antonio understand the needs of our students. And so when our school district asks for something or explains why we bought or invested in something, we usually are very well supported. That's not always the case, though, in many cities. And so you're always having to make sure you're spending taxpayer dollars wisely.
So Doc, I got to ask you as we prepare to wrap up, man. I asked my mom this as an educator. I asked you, man, going all the way up into leadership, do you still miss the classroom at all? Like without the COVID, do you still miss being the best guy in the hallway? Do you still miss that, man? Do you when you walk into the room, do you have that itch a little bit when you visit?
I do. I call it teacher envy, and I have it all the time. I do. And so I always ask the principals and teachers, look, if you need a substitute, hey, and
really
showed up that day, if I'm not, if I'm available, call me up, because I do miss it. I enjoy it. If I'm very honest and vulnerable about this, I would say I always felt more confident and that I was a better teacher than I was a principal or even an assistant superintendent. That classroom is my domain, and I know I do well there.
Do you have a favorite? Do you know a favorite year, favorite class? I know you can't probably call them because you got so many students, but do you oftentimes think back to some of your top years a little bit? Is there a top school that you were at when you were younger that still sticks with you today?
I have students, classes, all kind of things. I think my favorite class, it might be surprising for you. When I first came to Texas, I was told to teach an English as a second language class.
Wow.
That is to teach kids that did not know English.
Yeah.
Well, this dude from Detroit didn't know Spanish. And when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of Hispanic folks in Detroit.
Right.
And so, I promise you to God, when I got my roster and I had these names of these kids and I saw Jesus was on my roll, I asked many times, Jesus. And the kids looking at me like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And one of them said, you mean Jesus?
Jesus.
And so, that class of kids who didn't know or barely knew how to speak English was probably my favorite class because it forced me to be a good teacher.
Wow.
When you're dealing with people that don't understand you and you don't understand them, but you're expected to teach them the same standards as everybody else. Oh, it forced me. It forced me to be a teacher.
Wow.
So that is my favorite class. And I did that for 3 years working with kids. And huge impact on my life.
Did you learn some Spanish?
See.
Yeah. Yo, Doc, thanks for being on today, man.
Hey,
really appreciate it, man.
Thank you guys for having me and even for the opportunity for these kind of conversations. It's good for all of us to talk about it.
Well, Doc, we're glad you came, man, to be with us and talk to us.
Definitely.
Educate us. Listen, I know you said that parents are starting to learn what it takes to be in the classroom or what the teachers have been going through and commiserating with y'all a little bit more. Well, I'm glad to say I didn't have to learn that lesson because my youngest was a senior and he didn't need much help. But I got an education on this line with you today. Thank you for sharing all the stories and with us and with all of our listeners. And listen, for you all that are listening, whether you're just listening or whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, or whether you're listening in your car or watching on your device somewhere, we're just glad that you shared this time with us. If you learned something, if you found something in here that you want to share with somebody else, share it with your friends and tell your friends to share it with their family. We're glad you came, and we'll see you next time in the AP.
You've been listening to the Academy Podcast with Austin and G. Hit the subscribe button and come again. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. Oh yeah, and if you know someone who could use the information you just gained, take a minute to share. Much love from the AP.